Meet a man who grew up in a time when everything he needed was within 4 blocks of his home. Coming up next on Carolina People. Good morning. Welcome to Carolina People. This morning we're at the Montross Conference Room at the Horry Georgetown Technical College Foundation. We're focused on the South Carolina State Board for Technical and Comprehensive Education, and we're visiting with one of its board members, Dan Gray. Good morning, Dan.
Morning, Greg. Good to see you.
Thanks so much for getting back with us. The third time's a charm.
Yeah, I hope so.
You know, last time we were together, we were here in this conference room back in April, and before that, we were together at Florence Darlington Tech.
Yes.
At one of their conference rooms up there, which was fantastic. And, of course, part of the thrill for us, Dan, and I think for so many of our viewers, was the aspect of really learning about technical education, and not only in South Carolina, but folks in North Carolina and the community college systems that are so popular in that state, just to really understand the impact that technical education has on a daily basis. It's incredible.
Yes, it is. One of the things that is surprising to me and maybe many of our listeners and viewers is that this year over half of the students who leave high school and go into an institution of higher education are in one of our 16 technical colleges. And as you know, in other states, the same institutions are typically called community colleges.
Right.
Years ago, they used to be called junior colleges. And all of our schools can grant 2-year associate degrees and diplomas and certificates in various training. And we focus on economic development through educating and training our workforce, including young people, but also people who graduated and now they've married and are working. And so we try to improve the lives of all citizens, including young people, but as well as those who are more mature.
Mm-hmm. You know, one of our guests earlier this week, Dalton Floyd, who was with us on Wednesday, who's the chairman of the South Carolina Commission on Higher Education, was talking about folks who, less than 50%, Dan, of folks who start 9th grade will finish in even a 5-year period, will actually finish high school.
Yes.
And the aspect of folks who are getting out, and then half of those within the state are actually going into the technical college system is fantastic.
Yeah, our tech colleges give those who have that profile and other profiles, it gives them a second chance. A lot of young people, for various reasons, are not prepared or don't have the money to go to a 4-year institution. And frankly, only about 20 or 25% of the jobs going forward will require a 4-year degree. And we only, in this state, only graduate about 20 or 25% in 4-year degrees. Most of the jobs going forward will require either a 2-year degree or at least some advanced training that's typically offered in our technical colleges. And so those folks, young, and the average age of most of our tech students is 28. If that's the average, then more than half are more than or over 28. Most of them are female. And most of them are minority. I should say most of them, but it's significantly minority. And so we try to reach through our technical colleges to those socioeconomic levels of our society that are not privileged, frankly, and or they may have made mistakes early in life. I say mistakes, they didn't exercise the best of judgments, but now they have a second chance. And we had a testimony last week, if you recall, and it was of a young lady who was, in fact, changing her life. And we hear those stories all the time. Tech gave me new hope, new life. It gave me a place to be.
And that exciting aspect, Dan, of someone actually working in the profession they're going to be in, and then using the technical system to really hone their skills even greater for that same profession. They're going to stick it out. Oftentimes, as you know, having attended a 4-year school right out of high school, that you're 21 or 22 when you finish. You don't have any clue what you're going to do.
Exactly.
Not to pick on, obviously not to pick on universities, but to recognize that important aspect of being in a vocation, knowing what you really want to do with your life in your mid to late 20s, and then sticking it out and honing those skills.
A long time ago, I was an instructor at Horry Georgetown Tech at night, and one of the things that I noted then and now is that the students who are there want to be there. The students who are there may struggle, but they try hard. And things like discipline problems or poor attitude, you just don't have that. The faculty is there to help them, and it's dedicated, and they want to try to make something of their lives. And that's one of the rewarding things about serving in the state tech system.
We heard the woman with her testimonial last week, Kai, talk about that math professor who is with her for an hour each school morning, every other day, let's say, with her an hour each morning before class to help her prep. That desire, not only where the student desires heavily to be there, but the professor's excited about that desire.
That's one of the things that I've been impressed about in my service on the State Tech Board. I'm involved with the staff at each of our 16 colleges and also the staff in Columbia, and they're so dedicated. They're so driven to do the right thing, and they're not there just to get a paycheck. And all of them are so well qualified. I mean, we are lucky to have the state tech system that we do, because we do such a great job at reaching out to those elements of our society that are really in need. There's another aspect of the technical education system. It's called CAT, Center for Advanced Training and Technology. Used to be called the Special Schools Division. But this is a very focused effort that's part of the state tech system, and we work closely with the 16 colleges, but we provide initial training for new industries coming into an area or existing industries that are expanding. And there are numerous examples in Horry County and Florence County of where we foster economic development by providing this initial screening and training for new employees to a company that's expanding or moving in. But we also work on an ongoing basis. Later on, the tech colleges themselves continue to provide additional training and education. So we really are here not just for a social purpose, although it includes that, but also for just plain old job creation and economic development.
And that ties in so well to some of the things Dalton was saying on Wednesday, Dan, about how education really drives economic development. You wouldn't have any economic development. Another Lake City native we talked about, Darla Moore, who pushes that same thing constantly, reminding folks of that. But how does this, now whether it's the 16 school, the technical school throughout the state, or some of the other public institutions, how do they reach that 50% of the student body that doesn't finish high school in even surely 4 years after they start ninth grade, but even in 5 years? How does the state go about? Of course, you're serving on a state board, Dan. When you're there in Columbia, when y'all are having board meetings, wherever you have them, how do you talk about the students who just can't? I mean, how do you reach out to them?
Well, we do that in numerous ways. We work very closely with the Job Service Office, the Employment Security Commission, and we work very closely with the workforce development boards. And the workforce development boards and the Employment Security Commission are all very interested in reaching out to people who are either unemployed or underemployed and need training and need education. So we work very closely with these allied agencies. We also work closely with vocational rehabilitation. And then we have our own outreach and network programs. And of course, a lot of it, at least half of it, has to come from the desire of the student or the people that we serve to want to improve their life. And no amount of marketing is going to change that. But once that desire is there, either on our own at each individual school with our marketing programs, and Horry Georgetown Tech and Florence Darlington and Trident Tech in general receive very good coverage from the press. most of the business organizations have people on their staff who were trained at one of the technical colleges. I have an interest. I'm managing partner at River Oaks Golf Course. Our golf course superintendent is a graduate of Horry Georgetown Tech. I was talking to the forester who was doing some consulting work for a developer in the River Oaks community. He is a graduate of Horry Georgetown Tech's forestry program, and so on. Many of the healthcare people, businesses recognize that the most likely place for them to get the employees that they need is not necessarily from the four-year institutions. It's from the two-year community colleges. So they send students to us.
And it seems like those would be so many of the employers that the foundation is either currently reaching, would like to reach, or truly needs to reach on a regular basis to remind those folks of how much they're getting out of the technical college system, and the real desire to give back, to find some way to either set up scholarships or restricted or unrestricted funds to really help the foundation tick.
Well, as you know, we met last week, and I know that you were interviewing Tom Mazer, who's chair of our foundation board. Tom has brought new energy and new life to our foundation board.
Right.
And as you know, I'm a member, an ex officio member of the Horry Georgetown Tech Foundation Board. We have similar institutions all around the state for each of the 16 schools, and then we have a foundation organization at the state level as well. But Tom has set up working committees, to include public relations. And that's one of the things that is being addressed, is that we need to let people know that the foundation exists. It exists to raise money for Horry Georgetown Tech, so that it can have funds available that you just can't get from state funding or student tuition.
Well, there's surely a lot of efforts that need to be made. Tom and I talked about some of those on Monday when he was on, and surely some of the print vehicles as well as some of the broadcast mediums in the community that will be doing much more of a regular basis, weekly or bi-weekly column to highlight some of the amazing folks either on the board or alums in the area, or some of the great faculty and even students in the area that really make either Horry Georgetown Tech or Marlboro or the Sumter, the school over in Williamsburg Tech. It's an amazing to see the presence, and surely Florence Arlington Tech, just the commitment in these multiple communities aside from the other 11 statewide.
Yes.
Golly, 16 schools, Dan.
Yeah. Well, it escapes me the number of students that we have. I think it's in the range of 80-some thousand. Maybe it's over 100. But the thing that really brings it home to me is that half of the students that we have in higher ed in South Carolina are in one of our in a degree program. I mean, in a credit program in one of our 16 colleges. So that means that we have enormous connectivity, if that's the word, with our families and with our citizens and with our businesses, because our programs are devoted to primarily to one thing and one thing only, and that is economic development through job training and job creation. And we're here to help you get a better quality of life, I mean, as a student, through higher earnings, through specific education and training.
Right. Dan, we're more than halfway through the interview, and we haven't even touched on the Dan Gray, whose family roots date back to the 1700s here in Horry County. We got to do that. This is a people show. What about Dan growing up in Myrtle Beach? Can you share with the viewers a little bit about, for our viewers in the PD or southeastern North Carolina who aren't natives to Horry, who haven't seen the explosive growth and been able to really monitor it from an insider's perspective? What's it been like for you to see some of the growth on the Strand?
Well, since I've been here most of my life, sometimes it's hard to. It's like watching yourself grow old in the mirror shaving every morning. You don't really notice it. But it was, I grew up in the late 40s and in the 50s, and I remember the population of Myrtle Beach was, I probably stretched it, but was 3,000 in 1950, and I grew up on 4th Avenue North in Myrtle Beach, literally right beside the First Baptist Church parsonage and across the street. And everything that was important to me in my life was 4 blocks or less away. I mean, the town center where you went to get a haircut or go to the Saturday afternoon matinee was 4 blocks away. The ocean was 4 blocks away. Withers Swash, which was a real swash at the time, was 4 blocks away. The school was 1 block away. Everything was within walking and bicycling distance. And at that time, you could turn your kids out, which many families did, and you didn't worry about them. They was going to be okay. Now, all of that has changed, and while my dad's fond of saying that nobody wants to go back to the good old days, but we've changed, but we've changed in a way that has, frankly, benefited all of us. Just before coming here, I was at one of our stores, Springhouse Restaurant in Murrells Inlet. And as I was leaving, I make a point to talk to all the staff, and every one of them was from somewhere else.
Is that?
Ohio or Pennsylvania or so forth, doing a great job. But that's typical. And I just said, we couldn't be where we are in any sense of the word without the immigrants, if you will, or the people who've moved here from somewhere else. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's changed our lifestyle, but it's changed it in general for the better. And you're right. There's so much more here in this century than there was when I was a youngster.
It is amazing. We just this week on the show, on Tuesday, Thursday, and today, we have Horry County natives, one who's been here, and then the fourth, Dalton Floyd, who's been here since the early 70s, and then, of course, Tom Mazer, who's been here 10 or 12 years. But it is amazing to see and hear in Tammy Eves from Aner and Liz Gilland, Chairwoman Gilland, yesterday talking about growing up in Horry County, some of those aspects of her life, where she called the beach, really everything along the Strand was, I live in Conway, but I go to the beach all the time. Yeah. Really thinking about everything along the Strand. And for you, growing up in Myrtle Beach and seeing the explosive growth around you, knowing that, as you say, the immigrants have really changed the area, it is amazing, Dan.
My mother was born here in 1916. And her mother was born here, my grandmother, of course, who's now deceased, was born here in 1894, before it was even named Myrtle Beach. And then you go, you can go right on back. But, literally my mother walked to school, and one day a black bear walked out, and, so she remembers that as a kid walking to school. And my grandmother was born 1 year after the great storm of 1893, which you can read about it. Killed a number of people down in the South Strand area when the waves washed over all the marshes down that way. But yes, I'm familiar. Some people have kind of humorously, let's see, Horry County's 300 years of history unimpeded by progress. The Independent Republic of Horry, that's not true. But it's still funny to talk about it.
Now, Dan, your mom's got that black bear story, but you got to have some of those stories. One of your sons, I think, said, make sure and talk to Dad about being Dangerous Dan. I mean, there's got to be some stories out there about you and your background. Of course, not only currently all the things you're doing and have to keep your hands in. I think someone said, I saw Dan walking down close to Ocean Boulevard the other day walking a dog. I didn't know that guy had dogs. I thought this had to be something from Denise. This had to be an adult. But what's it been like for you? Some favorite stories from your youth, some of the exciting things.
You mentioned a dog I haven't thought about, but I had a dog when I was 10 or 12. His name was Frisky, off of the dog food can. That's where I got his name. And I remember when he died, actually I think somebody might have poisoned him, but I buried him in my backyard and had a ceremony. And later on I grew carrots, or tried to grow carrots and radishes over in the same plot. And then in Withers Swash, a childhood friend and I found a boat that was washed up, and we patched it up. My dad helped me and put pitch in it, and it was an all-wood boat. It was very heavy, and we paddled around Withers Swash in it, especially at high tide. And one day we got mad, and so we were going to saw the boat in half. One take one half and one take the other half. It was so hard to saw through that we didn't get halfway through. We just quit. Ruined that boat. But everybody has stories like that of growing up in Myrtle Beach. And let's see, I remember the Saturday all you need was a quarter, because it cost a dime to go to the movie. A Coke was like a nickel or 6 cents, and a box of popcorn was like 9. And then I mean, or maybe the movie was 15 cents. So you'd be there for 2 or 3 hours every. We didn't have TV, so that's.
Dan, there was no Broadway at the beach. I guess there may not have been a pavilion, but was there a Family Kingdom down there close to your home? Was there anything like that?
That's where Withers Swasher used to be.
Right, sure.
No reflection on the Emmons family, which now owns, was it Family Kingdom?
Family Kingdom.
That whole area on both sides of 17 used to be a big marsh area. And one of the things that my friends and I did, we would go down there and catch fiddler crabs and sell them for $1 a dozen or whatever, and along with sand fleas and mud minnows at Second Avenue Pier.
Yeah.
My aspiration in life was to be a member of Second Avenue Pier for $25. You could store 2 rods of your own and fish for the entire year, and that was the way I made my $25 with selling bait, cleaning fish.
Is that right? Damn. Now y'all went on to have obviously an impact here in the community and have stayed in the area. Do you remember your first childhood job? Maybe it was then. Maybe it was selling.
I was selling newspapers.
Is that right?
Yeah. I was a newspaper hawker. A lot of kids were.
Yeah.
It was before the days of news racks, and I sold the Charlotte Observer in the morning and the Charleston News and Courier in the afternoon, and also I had 2 weeklies, the Myrtle Beach Sun and the Myrtle Beach News.
Right.
I can tell you now, I couldn't sell them to the tourists on the boulevard. I would have to take my tips. I got $1.50 a paper. Right. So if I sold 100 papers, I had $1.50.
Yeah.
But I would usually make $2 or $3 in tips. And at that time, given the worth of money at that time, I'd make $20, $25, $30 a week. That was more money.
Yeah.
I couldn't spend it all.
I'm sure, Dan. That's amazing. We had a guest on last week who said at age 5 in Wheeling, West Virginia, he was selling newspapers, and of course he couldn't read anything. Someone would have to read the headlines. This was Harry Pavlak, and translate it for him. And it was so exciting just to be selling newspapers. Must have been incredible back then.
I'm so proud of Harry. Harry and I were at Clemson together. He was a great athlete at Clemson. Yeah. Running back, played in the Sugar Bowl and the Blue Bonnet Bowl, and also played baseball. And now he's an attorney of renown down here in Myrtle Beach.
I don't know about renown. No, I'm kidding. He is an attorney.
Everybody's got a Pavlak story. And I got a bunch of them, but I'm going to stop.
Yeah, let's get in on those. What about, now, Dan, when you came back from Clemson, did you come straight back to Myrtle, or did you do something else? We've only got a couple of minutes.
Yeah. I went to work initially for the Southern Railway System, and after working with them for a while, I found out that working for a transportation company was tough because they would move you all around, and I missed my family. And so I kind of came back hat in hand, asked my dad if I could have a job, kind of like, not exactly like the prodigal son, but anyway, so for a while, and I had a military obligation I dealt with the Marine Corps. And but other than time in the service and Southern Railway System, I've spent most of my life here.
Dan, you said you missed your family. You got a number of children, I know, and a couple of them are in education, and some in the restaurant business with you. Where are they now?
Well, my son Roger is principal at Myrtle Beach Middle School.
Oh, yeah.
And my daughter and both my sons are involved in the Springhouse restaurant business, and my son Wayne and I are partners together in that, and he is the managing partner. I just try to stay out of his way.
Oh, yeah.
And he does a great job, along with the other kids in the family, so to speak.
I bet he did. I want to get Wayne on sometime. I've never gotten him on Carolina People, and I thought this probably wasn't the week with Dad and son on. There'd be conspiracy theory out there. When you think about growing up in Myrtle, seeing that change, but of course having left for a while and then having worked outside of the area for a while, coming back here, were there some things that was there a family business that you got into, or the activity?
Well, when I came back, I had the opportunity to work for Graco Steel Corporation, and so I spent almost 30 years, over 25 years, in the steel fabrication business.
Okay.
And that's really where I got my nickname in high school, Dangerous Dan. Some guys in the shop accused me of not using safe practices. Sometime when we have more time, I'll tell you about it. But after that, after a little incident, they started calling me Dangerous Dan. Of course, I have other names too.
Yeah, let's get into those, Dan. That's right. No. Of course, the South Carolina, the State Board for Technical and Comprehensive Education has been so ingrained in your blood, and education has been recognized now. One of your sons being a middle school principal.
Yes.
How's that been for you, Dan, the excitement?
It's been very rewarding. I've been involved in community service for a long time, and before my association with the state tech system, I was involved in another helping program. It's now called Workforce Development Board, but both of them were devoted towards helping people improve the quality of their lives and helping them get to a better place. And I think all of us need something to be passionate about that's outside ourselves. Last week, the young lady referred to it as a calling. And so I have a sense of fulfilling a calling, of doing something for other people that doesn't benefit me in any way, and I enjoy doing it and feel good about doing it. So I have that passion for, in this case, technical education. I've been involved with it one way or another almost all of my adult life.
When he was growing up, everything was within 4 blocks of his house. Everything. You heard him say it. I hope you've been sitting here the last 25 minutes to experience someone again whose roots go back to the 1700s. The excitement for someone having left the area, returned to the area. You heard him talk about getting on knee and asking his dad to give him an opportunity to come back. The excitement to see his own children, to recognize education in their blood that has flown from his blood straight into theirs. Dan Gray, thanks so much for being with us this morning.
Greg.
Absolutely. Stay tuned to more Carolina People coming up next. We want to thank Dan Gray and his amazing commitment to the State Board for Technical and Comprehensive Education, as well as all the Gray family going back so far, for making today's Carolina People so special.